Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Hallmarkies podcast. I am Kari, your host today, and I'm joined with by our friend of the podcast, Mitu, is here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, we're so happy to have you back. I know that it's just you're kind of a regular guest host with us, and so it's been fun because I've never hosted with you before. So it's fun to kind of mix it up and meet you this way. I love it.
Yeah, I'm into it too, Rachel, bringing people together.
I love that. Good old technology, good old Rachel doing this for us. I love it. Well, we have the fun job today of recapping two Hallmark movies and mysteries premieres that happened over the month of May for two established series. Pretty established, I would say. The Martha's Vineyard Mysteries and Morning Show Mysteries. Now, I think Martha's Vineyard Mysteries is becoming a fan favorite. That would
Mm.
be my impression. What about you, Mitu? Do you think?
I love the Martha's Vineyard mysteries almost exclusively because of Jesse Metcalfe's accent. I don't know if that's his accent for the movies or how he speaks, but I just love it. It's so, I don't know, rough in a great
He's so
way.
rough. Yeah, is that a typical like Martha's Vineyard accent? Kind of like I don't know, an East Coast kind of accent that he has?
I have no idea, but I love it. Listening to him try to pronounce the names of drinks with that accent was a delight. At one point, he called Pinot Grigio Pinot Gris or something like that. It's a 10 out of 10 every time.
Yeah, I think he does such a great job. Like he is this character to me, Jeff Jackson. And I like that it's male, kind of like from the male perspective, like it's a
Mhm.
male lead and it's his backstory and it's his hometown type of thing. I think that's unique for mysteries on Hallmark franchise, you know?
I agree. And it gives Z the opportunity to be that voice of reason because
Mhm.
she is actually the one that does the reports and the autopsies. And so she is the one with the inside line of information, and Jeff is the one buzzing about and
Yeah.
like
Doing the action.
interfering. Exactly. So it's nice.
That is, I really like that. Plus, Martha's Vineyard is beautiful setting right there on the water. The cast of characters is really becoming kind of familiar and fun to me. Even this time, we'll get to this, but Bob wasn't there. This kind of gruff coffee shop marina owner, and he wasn't there. And I was like, oh, Bob's not there. And so I'm starting to get familiar with the cast, and I like that too.
Me
But
too.
what about the morning show mysteries? What is your overall um just personal opinion of the morning show mysteries?
I love the morning show mysteries. I really, really love Holly Robinson Pete. She's never been bad in anything. I just did a pandemic watch of Hanging with Mr. Cooper, and I got to watch her grow on that. I had never seen the show before. And so it's just been great to watch her in all stages of life. I watched For Your Love, which is another show that she did. And I was, we can get into this later, surprised that Rick Fox wasn't in this movie, but the
Right.
lead is very handsome and I was very
Yeah.
happy for her there too. So I'm into it.
That is so great. Okay, so we had such a break in the morning show mysteries that I thought they were done. I thought they were over.
Mhm.
They had five, maybe six, I think five episodes already, five movies. And when they said it was coming back, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be so fun. So we'll definitely get into that later. I do want to talk about that, but I I'm a big fan of these two series, and so I'm really excited to talk about the newest installments here. Cast of characters, we know who's in it. With Jesse Metcalfe, you said Sarah Lind is Dr. Z Medeiros. Nelson Wong is Andy Lau, which is so fun. And then Tammy Gillis is this character named Lauren Cabot. She's kind of just a small character, not a regular, but I love Tammy Gillis. Do you recognize that name at all?
No, where should I know her from?
Like a million little things.
Ooh,
It's
okay.
it, totally. If you look her up on IMDb or something, you would recognize her in all these little things that she's done tons for Hallmark, just like she's the sister or she's the like in
Mm-hmm.
here, the bank owner or something. But she is she's just one of those characters that she's a character actor, it seems, and she just dives in. So look her up.
That's like my
But
favorite genre of actor, so I absolutely will.
really? Oh, that's great. I'd
I
be
love when
excited
you're
to.
watching a movie and you're like, "Ah, I know them," and then you look up their IMDb and they were like in several episodes of Saved by the Bell or in several episodes
Yes.
of this or that, and you're just like, "Oh, you were in everything." You're just so good at fading into things and like becoming who you need to be to support this role.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love when they appreciate their career that is that, and
Mhm.
it seems like she is that one. So definitely look her up. But okay, what did you think of the first, let's say 20 minutes? This whole section before our first commercial break is so important. What were your first impressions of Poisoned in Paradise?
For Poisoned in Paradise, I would say that I was into the intrigue that they set up in the very beginning where Katie approaches Jeff and tells him that she is over her head. I think that if I were over my head in crime,
Mhm.
I don't know that I would turn myself in. So I like that she is clearly, it's conveying that she is clearly desperate for help and willing
Yeah.
to risk her own safety and freedom in order to access it. So I
Mhm.
thought that that set up really great intrigue. I
Mhm.
also like that we immediately jump into Jeff and Z's relationship. They
Yes.
have that fab date. He pronounces Pinot Grigio in a way that I will remember for the rest of my life and makes that delicious looking fish. I wanted to be a
Yes.
third person on that date, make it just like a friend hangout. But um, I liked that too. I like that we were building up to her telling him that she had feelings for him, but that it was a bit complicated, which we can get
Yeah.
into later. So I like that they just jumped right in. I wouldn't say that this was a slow build. I would say that we got a lot of action pretty quickly.
We did. We did, and I love that about the first 20 minutes, of this movie specifically. It really, really, we just dove in with this creepy little, time at the restaurant where the waitress goes and she tries to secretly, download something on a thumb drive, but she is nervous someone's watching her, and at first I
Mhm.
thought it was her guilty conscience, but really there was someone there kind of like watching her or trying to get to her and something. So she speeds off in her motorbike, and then the same, I love when we can jump right in where we left off with a relationship that built, that finally
Mhm.
went somewhere in the last movie with Jeff and Z, and then we didn't have to skip a whole movie to get back to their relationship. Like right away they were together, he asked her out on another date, they wanted to spend time together, they went to his cutie patootie kitchen that like you, I just wanted to be there with them. That was so great. So speaking of the time that Katie the waitress sought out Jeff, and she recognized him, I guess, in a coffee shop, and asked him if it was Jeff Jackson, and he consulted with the police, and my heart was beating for her because I can't imagine being scared like that. You're caught between a rock and a hard place, and then he is too. He couldn't do anything else but tell her, "Go to the chief." You know,
Mhm.
"Go to the chief if you're in over your head, if you need help, you need to go to the chief." But then he couldn't control what she did. I mean, that
Yeah.
was a scary thing to me too. Just like, "Ooh, what's gonna happen?" So okay, so they are on this date, and then how does this little beginning segment end? Do you remember? Like, she's telling him,
Yeah.
um, I have feelings for you, but," or she said, "I have to tell you something." Is that what
Mhm.
she said?
I think she said, "I have feelings for you," and he said, "But," and then
Mhm.
she was gonna give the but, and then they turn around and we see a turned over, was it like a Vespa or something?
Yes,
And
like a
so
Vespa.
it
Yeah,
turns out that Katie was the one who was driving that turned over, bike, and she is the one who is dead.
she's the one who's dead.
She's the one who's dead.
Honestly, at the 15-minute mark, I was like, "I can't believe no one's died yet." Like, where's the mystery here? Like, where's the dead body? There was one, it might have been Ships in the Night, the very last one. They had like 3 dead bodies. in that first opening segment,
Stacked. Yeah.
back to back to back. But this one, they didn't until it was Katie. And it was like, oh no, not Katie. She didn't even go for help. Not yet. So that was the opening. So now we have Jeff who feels burdened to know and to help her, postmortem. What was this big thing she was involved in? What was, I got to get to the bottom of this. What was, I think they suspect foul play right away
Mhm.
because of the something around her mouth or something, like it was
Yeah.
maybe a stroke, maybe a heart attack. I don't know.
And she's 26. And so they said that that was too young to have experienced either of those things in normal circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah. So Katie's in over her head. Jeff needs to know why. Z is on the case medically, which is fantastic. Let's talk about these inter cast of characters. They aren't regulars, but they're going to be important here to this movie. Like, who was like impressionable to you when they came on the scene and you met them?
One of the great red herrings for me was everything at the bank. So you hinted at this in the synopsis where Z discovers $100,000 in her bank and does the opposite of what many might do, which was immediately go to the bank and go, I don't know where this money came from or what I'm supposed to do with it. And the siblings there, what were their names? Noah and
Lauren.
Lauren.
Lauren. Mhm.
Noah and Lauren look into it. And then the bank teller, as they're getting it sorted, it gives her like every single bit of juicy gossip feet away from her boss. I just loved that confidence. She just was like boop, 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 typing, like whatever, trying to sort things. And she was like, well, you didn't hear it from me, but actually the reason they're back there fighting is the dad left everything to Lauren to run the bank and took care of both of them in the will, but Noah is mad that Lauren has the bank. And I mean, she is just truly dishing. And so that was just an immediately enjoyable scene for me. I love watching gossip in movies and then messy gossip at that, just like
Yes,
a yard from the people who employ her. It was just delicious.
totally. That was so funny, and it turns out, I guess Z and Noah had gone to high school together maybe,
Hmm.
so she knew, it's a small island, everyone knows each other, I guess, and then even then with this bank teller, Z had done her physical therapy or prescribed
Yes.
it or something, and so, you know, she's just feels super comfortable right away with Z to tell her all of these insides on the inheritance that happened
Yes.
at the
And
bank.
I believe the bank teller's name was Hazel. I'm trying to consult my notes. I'm not as good as Rachel is at
I know.
keeping track of all these things, but that was like an immediate red herring for me. I figured either one of these siblings did it. I thought maybe we're going to find out it was Lauren because she is less likely than Noah because
Yeah,
Noah's disgruntled with his inheritance.
yes.
Um, but we'll discuss later. It turned out not to quite be the case, but that
Mhm.
one really redirected me.
Yes, especially because of the 100,000 that was in Z's account, and it was such a big deal, and, yeah, I thought that was a pretty substantial plot that we were gonna see something happen with that as well. Something smaller was the manager at the restaurant, the beach house that the waitress Katie worked at,
Hmm.
Claire. She kind of put them on the tail of, or the trail of, Glenn, this guy named Glenn, who was Katie's ex-boyfriend. He was a cook at the restaurant, and he quit the night before she was murdered. So, me to same with me, with Glenn. I was like, "Okay, he plays a part, but I don't think that he's gonna have a big part necessarily, but it's always fun to see how they mesh, how the story kinda comes together." So with Glenn, he genuinely seemed surprised that she was dead. He didn't know. But he was a punk, even Jeff called him a punk. He was like, "That punk knows more than that punk." So he was totally bothered by him, but that was Glenn. So that was another little trail that they had to follow.
Hmm.
There was one more, I believe,
Marty
Oh,
Klein.
Marty Klein. Tell us about Marty Klein.
Marty Klein was the professor of who specialized in Greek mythology and ran a farm and led a vegan and sustainable lifestyle. And Katie worked at that farm. And one of the things that the cops had access to when they found Katie's body was her phone. And while they couldn't get into her phone, they saw texts pop up on the home screen and took photos of them, of Marty texting her apologies, like many "I'm sorry" texts. And he claims when they walk up to him and confront him about it, that he yelled at her for destroying heirloom tomato seeds, which was loose, just an immediate red herring. I love an heirloom tomato. I know they are expensive. It's an expensive habit I have at my local Whole Foods, but I don't know that anyone is yelling at anyone over heirloom tomato seeds.
Right. They were like these purple heirloom tomato seeds or
Yeah.
something like that.
It's like, I'm not picking up what you're putting down. I don't know about this
Right.
one, but that was a good red herring because I was immediately suspicious of that. I was like, I don't know that anyone's yelled over tomatoes.
Oh, for sure. And just his call me or whatever his text said did not really match the
Hmm.
tone of I wanted to apologize. I yelled at her and I felt bad. I wanted to apologize. It was like it was definitely more urgent than that and more of a boss, demanding than
Hmm.
apologetic. So for sure, Marty Klein, he was, oh, I mean, he rubbed me the wrong way as soon as he quoted that wacky quote of
Oh
Socrates.
yeah, his Socrates quote. It was the man that knows everything knows he knows nothing at all. It's like, I don't know, man. If I'm being confronted by police for a murder, I don't know that I'm speaking in riddles. I'm just going, I didn't
Oh,
do it. I think that
I thought this exact same thing, me too. I was like, okay, obviously these are policemen coming up at you. He doesn't know yet that Katie's murdered, but I was like, no, 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 no. Don't even play these games.
no,
Where
I
it's
don't
like
think so.
Marty, Professor Klein. Oh my goodness. So while they are with Professor Klein or following certain leads that some not necessarily witnesses but close contacts are giving the police, Z finds out that yes, the autopsy shows Katie was poisoned by a highly toxic poison, or highly toxic amount of poison, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, the water hemlock.
Yes, water hemlock.
Water hemlock, which is native to the island. And she said that really anyone who knows, like anyone native to the island, I guess themselves, would know where to get it, how to extract it. Like it's pretty run of the mill poison, I guess, just right there on Martha's Vineyard.
Just another thing to look out for as we come out of a pandemic. Water hemlock around the corner.
Careful, careful out there in Martha's Vineyard. So they found that in a liquid that was in her backpack, and Jeff thought maybe it was vinegar, but turns out it was kombucha.
Hmm.
So kombucha that will come into play later, I guess. So she's poisoned, and I mean, where do we go from here? They have a couple leads that they followed, but nothing really.
I would say the interesting concurrent storyline was also Jeff trying to get closer to figuring out who shot him and why. And so we also have that side storyline of him going to Boston and him working with Andy to arrest Keith McDonough and later um, interrogate him, and having to run up against, it looked like, federal agents who wanted to interrupt the case. And so he had a really nice exchange. I guess nice is a broad term for it, but while he was at the station in Boston, he ran into Sergeant Paul Weber, who
Mhm.
gave him the advice of moving on. He said that he himself had been sidelined in his career due to injury. In his case, he knew exactly who did it and why. Whereas he knows that for Jeff, it'll be harder for him to find peace and move on because he has the mystery hanging over him, but that he just must do that. And so that, I thought that was like an interesting, smaller storyline, which more directly connects with his love storyline, I think, with Z than whatever he's doing on the vineyard, because that's one of the things holding her back, it seems, is his dedication to figuring out what happened to him and finding that piece.
Yeah, yeah, finding that piece. I feel like as a doctor, she understands that it's not just your body that needs to heal, but we are our whole person, our whole being, body, soul, mind, spirit, are all connected. And she just has a good, compassionate insight, I think, to okay, you have baggage, but
Mhm.
but she's compassionate about that. Like, find that answer and become whole, like she wants him to do that. And so she's willing to kind of put them yeah, to kinda slow the pace a little bit, but I think he is obsessed. He is in no condition to follow through on his own cold case. Like,
No.
he is so emotionally charged every time he gets a phone call, every time he gets information. He got information this time by Jackie Shull, the reporter on Martha's Vineyard, told him that the 38 Special, which is this, nickname that the shooter, I guess, he gave the shooter or something of his cold case, he kind of is on the loose, it seems, again in Boston. And that is what initiated Jeff's phone call to his buddy Andy and got him actually to Boston. He went back and forth a couple of times to Boston in this movie.
Flu.
Flew. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It is
Just
not
there and back.
easy to get in and out of Martha's Vineyard. Like, he was shelling out dollars to get there.
It was so important to him. So he definitely has a little obsession right now. You brought up Sergeant Peter Weber.
Mhm.
I have I have every instinct that we'll see him again. I mean, he at first seemed like a shady character, and I think Jeff too was suspicious of him, like, "Why are you reading my cold case file?" But he proved to be a friend. He really
Mhm.
did. Proved to be, he said, "You've got a friend here," and, Jeff called him a few times for insider information, and by the end, I trusted him. I liked him.
Me too, and he said that because he is at his desk and assigned to his desk work, that he has time to review cold cases.
Mhm.
I imagine as he develops a relationship with Jeff, he'll keep digging in and finding more helpful information. So, like you said, I don't think this is the last we'll see of him in this movie,
Mhm.
even if it's a little bit in the next installments. I
Yeah,
think he will be a big part of revealing the details of the cold case.
yeah. Now, it was interesting to me that they introduced an ally because I thought we already had one in Andy Lau.
Mhm.
But because they introduced this new character, Paul Weber, I wondered I got an uneasy feeling about Andy Lau.
Ooh,
Um,
like he can't have 2 allies in Boston.
right. A little
Hmm.
bit. I mean, maybe he could, and oh my gosh, Nelson Wong is I mean, you don't wanna root against the guy. He is a sweetheart, but this character is not always upfront with Jeff, is
Yeah.
not always giving him the full information, not always honest, and I realize it's policeman versus civilian. I mean, I realize that there's some boundaries that may be there, but I don't know. Did you get that feeling at all about him?
I didn't, but now that you're saying it, I am. Maybe you're just particularly convincing and should be like a salesperson or something, but I really like that. I like that theory, and now I'm kind of rooting for it, even though it's kind of mean to Jeff.
I know.
That's fun and complicated.
It's fun and complicated. I mean, we find out already that Andy Lau had arrested Keith McDonough, this criminal, before, like 4
Mm.
times. 4
Mhm.
like 4 times, and, it was in Keith McDonough's file, and that's some information that Paul Weber gave to Jeff, but Jeff was like, "Why didn't you tell me? You've arrested this guy before," like, y there's gotta be a funny relationship there between cop and criminal that where that happens. But I was like, oh no, Andy, are you trustworthy? I don't know." Okay, so that gets us back and forth to Boston and this
Mhm.
really interesting and complex backstory of Jeff Jackson's. But meanwhile, on the island, we do find that Katie, when she died, she herself had $100,000 extra in her bank account. And that is brought to the attention that brought to Jeff and Z's attention, and they're like, "Oh no, what is this? You know, this can't be a coincidence." So they look into that at the bank with this great character that Tammy Gillis plays, Lauren, and they kind of hunt that down. Do you remember the details of that? Finding
Yes.
out,
That the deposits were coming from Chesterfield Logistics, and they were coming through someone named Evelyn, who turned out to be Katie. And it was delightful, the moment where they're like, Katie is Evelyn, Evelyn is Katie. And I just live for those fun, dramatic moments. They had another one later we can talk about with Glenn and them putting together the magazine clip outs to put up the puzzle of, like, if you don't pay me, I'm gonna go to the cops or something like
right?
that. They did that with like a bunch of
Something to that.
magazines, and it was just, I love those sorts of reveals because they're just fun and silly and
Yeah,
very within the genre.
absolutely. This whole reveal at the bank, you know, they couldn't get the bank owner Lauren to reveal account information, like even a name or all of the stuff, and so they were like, they had to kind of get a creative way around about some of that, and they thought of the security cameras. And, you know,
Mhm.
one corporate account was open that day, one person came in to open it. Can we get another shot? Can we get another angle? And there it is. It's Katie in a disguise opening an account as Evelyn Lesko. So they obviously think rightly she's a front. She's a front to something big. And they're using her to yeah, get money, I guess, back and forth, and they've still got to figure that out. We have not introduced one character just yet. This is a character who is new to the island, fairly new, a couple months, and he's a baker. And he opened this gourmet, what was it called? Tray Gourmet. And Tray Gourmet, very, very gourmet. So we meet him first at the beginning when Britt, Z's friend, is trying out his pastries for her hotel or her inn. And they're so good. And oh my goodness, this guy's gonna, you know, have a long tenure on the island, give Bob a run for his money and stuff like that. So they find him again. They go back and talk with Bob again. And because they needed to track down Noah when they were talking about some of this stuff. So they find Z and Jeff find themselves in the bakery talking to these two about the beach house because why? Do you remember that connection? How they got there?
Was this through the money laundering and the orchids? Is that what we are in the movie?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Connect those dots for us. Would you? Me too. You're good at that.
Anytime. So I believe we find out that, of course, heirloom tomatoes don't cause people to snap at others. So we learn that Marty is hustling orchids, which I didn't know that there was a market there. I will learn to garden soon to try to get my own piece of that pie. And and
It's
so
illegal. Me too. It's
is
illegal.
that you're right, excuse me. That's true. They were shipping in these orchids, and then Marty was figuring out how to sell them, and then they were using the bank to launder the cash for from these orchid sales. And so they put that all together, and we find out, I don't know if we are comfortable doing reveals now, that um Frank had a history with all of these players, and that he actually had just been recently released from prison himself
Mhm.
for I think it was like fraud and laundering and all the things that you uh all of the skills that would lend themselves to being successful in this little crime
Right.
ring. And so he tries to escape by tossing up flour and using a blowtorch to set it on fire, which was of the funniest things I have seen in my life. I watched that scene several times, called my partner into the living room so he could watch. It was just very real in my home to just watch that flour go on fire. Then he tries to disappear in a floury, smoky mist.
Yes, he does. He does because we've already ruled out Marty. Marty
Hmm.
is, yes, he has this illegal orchid thing he's doing. Yes, Katie was connected to him and worked for him part-time, but no, he was not the one laundering money. And or like he wasn't the one involved in this big thing that Katie was involved in. She was involved in something bigger because he said no, she didn't want to. She said, I don't want to take any more dirty money. And they were like,
Mm,
oh,
yeah.
where's that other dirty money coming from? So we say, no, it's not Marty. Then they find out, no, it's not, has nothing to do with Glenn, because Glenn, they found him dead in his apartment, shot, and he had been writing blackmailing notes, or not writing, cutting them out of magazines.
Yes. Arts and crafts.
Yes. So he was black. He knew what Katie was involved in, I guess, and he was blackmailing people that about it. So he wasn't really involved, I don't think, but he was blackmailing people. So so then it comes down to this, this who then how were they laundering money? And it turns out they're laundering through the beach house, the restaurant.
Hmm.
Turns out the brother, one of the siblings, Noah, Lauren
Noah.
owns the bank. Noah was given the beach house as an inheritance. So now Noah does know Katie, does have his hands on some money, does have a place he can launder money through. Like, he's becoming more and more suspicious to them, and they think he's the big dog. But when they find him, he is super scared. Super, he said, I paid off Glenn. I tried to come and warn Katie, and now I'm going to be next. Someone's going to kill me next. And they're like, who's going to kill you next? And he falls down the stairs and gets unconscious, and he's no more help. No more help to Jeff. No more help to Z, because he's injured. Great.
That's very helpful. Thank you. I forgot that the orchids were not part of that, but rather their own hustle. And that the reveal was that Noah was doing his own hustle where he had maybe the most popular bank in town where you could just have a surprise $100,000 in
Right.
your account. Unfortunately, it might disappear later, but just for a day, just to feel
Right.
it.
Just so he can like hide it somewhere and then
Mhm.
and then move it around. So of course at this time we think, I don't know, my mind still was on Lauren, the sister banker, kind of like, wow, she's in on this too. But turns out she was not, actually. She was not in on it. She had, okay, what did she do? She was trying to help him, but her brother was in deeper than she thought. Her brother had always had a gambling problem,
Mhm.
even since high school, and actually had a record as a bookie, one who takes bets and shuffles money around, I guess. So you need a backer for that. I don't know. You need someone with money to back this, to back it up. But he got in trouble in Providence, and then now he's here again. And so they're like, okay, who's backing him though? So they kind of just keep realizing that it's bigger and bigger and bigger, until we get to that great scene with the fire and the blowtorch and the creme brulee, or whatever it is that he was
Yes.
doing with the baker.
I wish they could have had one last dessert. Creme brulee is a treat.
Such a treat, and he was doing such a good job. I mean, I think he was a legit baker. That's the sad thing. You have a legit skill to make honest money and to do honest work.
Yeah, I know. If I were them, it's like you were a murderer 5 minutes ago. You'll be a murderer 5 minutes from now. I'm gonna enjoy this brownie before I expose your your
Would you
crimes.
just sit tight?
Yeah,
I could take a little coffee with this. Thank you very
yeah.
much.
Like, oh, are those cookies fresh? I'll tell you later.
That's so great. So, I mean, they when they kind of wrap it up for us, and they like kind of walk it through and say, this is how you killed Katie. And I guess somehow he knew her daily schedule, and he knew she made her own kombucha and
Mhm.
poisoned it, I guess. Right?
Yes.
I mean, he poisoned it. I don't really know. He wasn't native to the island though. Like, some of those things didn't add up to me. Like, he's not native to the island. He's new. Yet he poisoned her with this water hemlock. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Somehow he poisoned her through her special drink. And then he shot Glenn. Then he was going to threaten Noah. Anyway, I thought it was really clever. Super clever how Z and Jeff kind of got him at his bakery with the phone call.
I loved that reveal, though I would say that it came a little easy where Jeff calls him from Noah's phone. And instead of just checking to make sure it was Noah, Frankie immediately was like, hey, if you tell on me, I'm going to get you, whatever. And Jeff was like, hey, man, you just revealed everything. Sorry.
Thank you very much. That was super easy. I think I just kind of shows his like mobster roots, you know, like he's going to threaten before he actually sees.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. Maybe it's true to character.
Yeah. Yeah. So he is this big time bookie from Providence, Danny Callahan. And so obviously he came to Martha's Vineyard, changed his name, found partnered up with Noah, and they just did this successful money laundering for a little while until Katie got in over her head and was scared. And so that is it. I mean, it takes us to the docks. We have a pretty scary tussle because Donnie, this Frank Baker, is a big guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was
with a big fish hook.
With a big fish hook.
Or whatever that is. I'm not someone who fishes. I don't know anything about it, but it was just the biggest hook I had ever seen in my life. And he tried to drive that into Jeff.
And then he like picks him up by his neck and Jeff's feet are dangling.
I thought that scene was kind of silly because Jeff just sort of tweaked his eyebrow or something and he dropped him. It's like it hurts to wax your eyebrows, but I don't know that I don't know that if I had the strength to lift someone in that way, that's what would take me out.
Right. I know maybe it was more of a gouge or something to the eye, but it definitely seemed like a little like plink. Like
yeah, exactly. And then Frank was like, ow. And I was just like, I don't know if I buy this, but this is still a great fight scene. And
yeah, it was.
I can tell that you can tell Jesse Metcalf was excited to get into that physicality because he was all in.
Yeah, he was really all in. Fighting. You're exactly right. He's a runner too. I mean, like he runs and he goes for it. And there was times when they arrested Keith McDonough and in the, you know, they're all running after him in Boston and they're doing the sneak around thing in the warehouse. And you can just tell that Jesse Metcalf loves that part of it. He's an action man. So that works. That works for him. I loved this movie. I thought it was so great. And a really good installment to the Martha's Vineyard mysteries. I guess I would rate it 4 out of 5.
I completely agree. It was fab. It was really great.
Yeah, good. Way to go, Martha's Vineyard. Thank you for Poisoned in Paradise.
We'd like to take a second from this episode of the podcast to celebrate our sponsor of this episode, and that is the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast?
Do you want an inside scoop into what happens on the podcast?
Do you want early access to episodes and loads of cool perks?
Now is the time to become a patron of Hallmarkies podcast.
By becoming a patron, you get to access our patron Facebook group.
You can request episodes or even be a guest on the podcast.
And most importantly, any patron can join our monthly movie watch-alongs with stars like Paul Campbell, Natalie Hall, and more.
It's as low as $2 a month to join in and become a special part of the Hallmarkies family.
Please consider, and we will love you forever.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies. Let's go on then. We've got one more movie to cover, and that is the morning show mysteries, A Murder Ever After, which aired just last night, or a couple nights ago, depending on when we listen to this. And it's the 6th movie is what I think. And, you know, before we go on, I just want to say, first of all, welcome back, Morning Show Mysteries.
Welcome
back. I think everyone was excited to see that there was another morning show mystery coming. But let's talk about a few of the things that were different right off the bat for these morning show movie. Right away in the previews, we see a different guy.
Mm-hmm.
we don't see Rick Fox. Do you know anything about that? Do you know any backstory or?
I didn't, and I hadn't seen previews.
Oh,
So
you
I just went
didn't.
into this movie straight up, and I was very surprised to not see Rick Fox. I've probably had a crush on Rick Fox my entire life. I feel like he's been handsome since I was a child.
He has.
I don't think he's ever had an off day, but that's not to sleep on Colin Lawrence as Terrell. He is very handsome, fills those shoes very well of the gruff, cute cop that she is
Yeah.
now going to get likely become romantically involved with.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think I did see a preview and I was sitting here with my daughter one time and we were both like, "What? A new guy? Who is this guy? Wait, what? Where's Rick Fox?" And of course, who played Ian Jackson? And he was very good character. I really liked that character, but this swap was a great swap. I
Yeah.
personally think it was a really great swap, and it brought some new life to this series to me. There's a couple new things like right away in the opening, one of the first time opening scenes here with Billy, we hear she sold her restaurant. She is a host, a full-time host on the morning show, Wake Up West Coast. She broke up, that she and Ian broke up. He moved to LA to be with his daughter, rightly so. And then this new detective is coming and you're like, okay, we're going somewhere here with this movie. And honestly, I think it makes more sense. It's called Morning Show Mysteries. Like,
Mhm.
get her on the morning show full time. Like, she doesn't need two jobs.
Yeah, I love it as a way to explore her investigative skills, both as a journalist and with the crime. And then I can't remember if we've done a synopsis yet or not, but
Not yet.
so I don't want to get too into it. But she
Mhm.
also had great chemistry with the new host that we meet, Carlos,
Yes.
and that was really nice to watch too.
Yeah, that was. I love that because I thought this TV studio and the cast of characters that goes with the TV studio and this Wake Up West Coast show that they do, they are so strong. They're
Hmm.
so fun. They're so funny. We have Phil, Lucy, Lance, Gretchen. I mean, and then this new guy, Carlos. They are such a great addition to this movie. It's just fun. It's going to be more of them, I think, because she has a full-time role now on this Wake Up West Coast show. Which, by the way, did you love the title sequence for Wake Up West Coast? Like,
Yes, a whole new title sequence. Having her that's the star of it. I loved it. I was like, they are clearly just starting fully fresh. It is Billy's new era, and we are just lucky to bear witness.
I know. It was so great. I thought that was so funny. But they did a great job at that. Okay, so let's get in then. Obviously we're talking about Holly Robinson Pete, who is Billy Blessings, and then Colin Lawrence, who is this new detective Terrell Price, and he's in Virgin River. Do you watch Virgin River?
I don't.
Or did you? Okay, so he's like the preacher in that. I think his name's Preacher.
Mm.
He has been in with Holly Robinson Pete all of the Christmas and Evergreen movies, or not all of them,
Mm.
but some of them.
Hmm.
He's
Yeah.
her love interest in those movies and does a great job with her there. So fun to see more of them here. And then Karen Robinson is awesome and amazing Aunt Cassandra, who I love. She's a great character. We'll talk more about her later. Okay,
Also, that
so
actor has such range because her character on Schitt's Creek couldn't be more different than on this movie. It
oh,
took me a while to realize they were the same
stop
person.
it. They're not, she's
Yeah.
not Rhonda.
Let me make sure I'm not lying to you.
Is she Rhonda?
But it hit me while I was watching today because I just finished Schitt's Creek. I was like, I think they're one and the same.
Are you kidding me? That's just,
Let me make sure I am not lying to your face in this moment. I will Google very
but
fast.
she has such a unique character, like a unique characteristics of her face. I mean, so
Mhm.
I don't see how you could be wrong. That blows my mind. I love that actually because Rhonda is hilarious. Just
Yes,
straight
okay, one
face.
and the same, Ronnie Lee and Aunt Cassandra. Like,
Oh
what a
my
range, right?
gosh.
What a fantastic range,
Okay, I need to see what else she's in now because I need
right?
yeah, I need to look her up because I her as Aunt Cassandra is my what I thought was my first time seeing this actress, but now I know it's not. But, I just think she's a great has a great comedic presence with
Mhm,
she's a straight man, you know, she plays the
mhm.
straight man, "What are you doing? Leave it to the police, don't get involved," but she's hilarious. What were your first impressions of the first, these opening sequences here?
This one, I think I spent a little bit of time texting friends being like, "Oh my goodness, this is a total reset." And so I think that was my initial reaction more than getting into the story, which is not to say the story wasn't great. I was just surprised and interested in this new start for this series. I
Yeah.
would say that the mystery they set up was great because initially, so we learned that her old friend Maggie's dad, Ryan, gets sick. And so he has to go to the hospital. And then, in looking through Maggie's home, Billy, of course, as these people do in these small towns,
Mhm.
finds a skeleton. And then they have to call the authorities and figure out who has been killed and why, and whether this skull belongs to Ryan's ex wife, Phoebe, who had disappeared 7 years prior. And so, with that, we just had this immediate fun setup. And I thought that the mystery would be that Ryan himself was tampered with in some way. And so I was surprised at that redirect that, like, what happened to him is unfortunate, but not foul play. And rather, it is this discovery in the basement.
Yes. You know what? There, that's funny that you say that because that wasn't very clear to me. They
Hmm.
did show someone in the house lurking um, when the daughter came in and found her dad on the ground, and someone was in the house lurking, and so you assume it's going to be this foul play, but they never really circle back to that, and you do just think, well, maybe these two were talking, and he just I don't know what that was all about, but there is I what I like about this movie is that they keep going back. It was really heavy on the flashbacks, but
Hmm.
it was flashbacking to this, or sorry, flashing back to this one particular night, New Year's Eve night, 7 years ago. Fireworks, the whole neighborhood in the cul-de-sac, like all the friends are out there. And so you start to get this flashback from everyone's different perspective, piecing together what actually happened that night 7 years ago when they find that these two people married to other people are having an affair, and the different perspectives from the neighbors, and this Phoebe and Jay who are gonna run off together, and then they were never seen again after that night. A big argument, you know, between everybody and stuff. So that I thought was really fascinating, and I actually love stories like this where they just try to figure it out and everyone has a different perspective, and so that got me right away when I saw a flashback. I was like, "Oh boy, here we are. We're flashing back. I like it."
I completely agree. I think sometimes those storylines can get complicated, a la How to Get Away with Murder. But in this case, with this, with Murder Ever After, they did it in a really smart way. Like you said, we would sometimes see the same scene over and over again, just sort of looking for different clues. Often we would see it from different perspectives. And I love when people play with the concept of people's memories.
Mhm.
So you can really think that you saw something or really think that something happened, and you could even have potentially have seen it, but it's not the whole story. And so piecing it together through all of these different perspectives and things that they find from that night was really smart. I enjoyed every reveal from that, and it was a really great tool for this story.
Yeah, I agree. I so we have a couple of key players here. Billy, of course, is our main gal, but she is getting ready for an interview with mayoral candidate. lady named Pam Messner. So Pam is running for mayor and is going to come on the show. And so Billy's preparing these muffins. They're going to bake together or whatever to put this mayoral candidate in a good light. And so we have Pam Messner, who we find out later her husband Jay Messner was one of the guys having the man having the affair. Then we have Ryan, who's Maggie's dad, who's in the hospital now, who was married to Phoebe, a younger woman who ran off with Jay. So Ryan was an upstanding citizen in the town, gym teacher, married a younger woman. And then we have the Neelys, Gwendolyn and Mike Neely, who lived on the block and was with everyone in that group. And then we have Aunt Cassandra, actually does not live there now, but did live there earlier. She said she didn't live there during this time of this party and stuff, so she wasn't involved, but she knows the key players. So she's an in too. I love how Billy always ropes her in.
Yeah, I love that she unfortunately had just that little bit of knowledge that Billy needed. And she just regretted whatever time she had spent living on that street. And so that was a delight.
Yes, that was so great. So I love that. So throughout the whole movie, we're watching these three couples and kind of how they interact and where they went from here. But something fun is happening at the studio in the meantime. Do you want to tell us about the introduction of this new character, Carlos Montano?
Yes. So Carlos comes on the scene. He's this hotshot morning show host and journalist, and they think that he's going to come in super informed, ready to run things. And instead, he doesn't even recognize who Billy is, asks her about her muffins, questions her old thing, and pushes her to do some quote unquote real journalism. And so their relationship was immediately antagonistic. And
Mhm.
I actually loved that little bite between them. I couldn't tell if he was also a potential love interest because they had that immediate chemistry, because there was just a fire there
Yeah.
as they were riffing off each other.
Yeah, and he kept saying, so he gets wind of this this body, this bones in the basement, dug up from this old gym teacher's house, and so he kind of goes on this hunt to find the real story. Well, Billy does not want this story broken on her show because this is about her friend and her friend Maggie, and she does not want to be a part of this. So he keeps like giving information, and her interest is piqued more and more each time, and he keeps saying, are we working together now? And she's like, no. Like, are we working? Like, are we gonna work together? And she's like, no. So I thought that was really fun too. He's just doing his job, but boy, he was persistent, definitely persistent.
Yeah, he even convinced Terrell to go on the show, which I think was a great scene to just sort of show how persuasive Carlos can be, because Terrell, when he is introduced, his partner introduces him as someone who doesn't eat carbs or sweets, doesn't watch TV, just doesn't have time for nonsense or fun, just is work oriented, and is someone who is a doer in every sense. And so for him to have been persuaded to go on a morning show to try
Right.
to glean information about an active case that he's investigating is a testament to how smart and cunning
Mhm.
the series is making us believe that Carlos is.
Yeah, and I don't think he's not a bad guy. Like,
Mm-mm.
he's there in no way was he really villainous in any of the stuff that he did. He seemed suspicious to me sometimes. He seemed pushy, bossy, but he's a reporter, like he was doing his job and he was
Yeah.
doing it well.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. So, okay, so there's some parallels here now between um Detective Price, Terrell Price, and Carlos Montano. Just a little bit of parallels in the way that they relate to Billy Blessings. So that's why I do wonder, oh, is this some sort of triangle now? Are we, or what? But it just was what it was. It wasn't too heavy on the romance at all with either one, but there was some laid a foundation for an antagonistic relationship with both men. Even Detective Price did not know who she was when they met. And
Mm-hmm.
that kind of you know, kind of bothered her a tiny bit, but not really. She's humble, you know? Um, she was bummed, or not bummed, she was bothered that he was getting in the way. She was like, he's getting in the way, like, we can handle this, you know, this investigation and this, her friend Wally. She was like, "Wally, you're on the case," you know, but he's there. So let's talk about this scene that they have together, the sandwich scene. The sandwiches. She brings her friend Wally some lunch at the crime scene, but Wally's not there. So she said, "Well, there's also a sandwich in here for you," to Detective Price, and he's all for it. He I think right away he has interest in Billy. He's intrigued by her. Um, so they sit down and I don't know, connect a little bit or just talk about stuff. Do you remember that conversation?
I don't remember the conversation, but I do remember that after, when she talked to her Aunt Cassandra, she said that she talked about Terrell, and Aunt Cassandra said, "When did he come? But Terrell, when did he become Terrell instead of
Yeah.
Detective Price?" And so she got to be us for a second, observing the relationship, because things had shifted after that.
Yes, yes, things had shifted because he was saying, you know, "Is this a Trojan horse, this sandwich? Are you trying to get
Mhm.
information on the sly?" And she said, "No, I really am not," you know, and then she's pretty forthcoming with some things about her friend Maggie. "Maggie lied to you, you know, in the kitchen." He's like, "Yeah,
Oh
I got
yes, I
that.
remember this now. Hmm.
Yeah, I got that. She lied to me because Maggie made some horrible choices. Horrible." When they found the skull in her dad's basement. She is an attorney, and so she's already clicking in her mind like, "The police are here, the DA is gonna start building a case against my dad, you know, I've gotta really just protect him." So she deletes voicemail messages from him. She lies to the cops about recognizing a gold watch they find, and, just burying herself under these horrible choices. So Billy kinda comes clean for her to the detective, and that starts to earn his trust.
And Maggie said that she was doing that because she herself either was a DA or works in a DA's office in Chicago,
Yeah.
and said that she had put people away for a lot less evidence.
Oh,
And so she just saw all the clues adding up, and just
yes.
and thought, I could win this case, so perhaps not for my dad.
Right. So the gold watch that they do find, with all the bones, some of the bones were preserved, some of the bones had disintegrated in, lye, and, it sounds like the basement was a basement that flooded quite regularly. It had a dirt bottom, and, that is what saved all of the bones, or saved some of the bones from being deteriorated by this lye, I guess. So it preserved it and washed away the lye. But they find this gold watch, and it's Phoebe's gold watch. It's obvious. It's in pictures. It's, you know, everyone remembers that it's Phoebe's. So they do assume that these body that they find is Phoebe in the basement. So now it's like, well, who killed Phoebe? What happened? You know, all of this stuff. Until until when Detective Price goes on the show, the morning show. Do you remember that?
So he and Carlos went out for tacos, except Detective Price doesn't eat carbs or things that taste good. But Carlos still convinces him to go on the morning show. And so he goes thinking, this case has already been exposed. I may as well I may as well make a public appeal for anyone to come forward with information. And while he is sitting there on the couch, just trying to ease in, and Billy doesn't want him there, stopped him halfway through his makeup process, just was like, I am not into this. Um, Phoebe walks out in a fabulous reveal, and and it turns out
Totally.
she's not the person in the basement. And Detective Price gets very mad about it, and Carlos just gets up and goes, "We have another 5 minutes." I loved, I love that he was like, "We're figuring this out."
I know. That was shocking to me though. Like I didn't see that coming. I don't know if anyone did. I mean, Phoebe is alive and well. That those are not her bones in the basement. Detective Price realizes, okay, this got out of hand quick. So he takes her to the station or something, and stops the interview. So now it's like, okay, whose bones are in the basement? Like, what is going on? So they start to just kind of interview more people. We do have the reveal of a screwdriver with one single print on it. And so they're trying to find a print match based on all these people who were at the party 7 years ago. They rule out Ryan, the gym teacher. They rule him out. They rule out Pam Messner, the candidate for mayor. They rule out this guy named Brad, who was a young guy who worked for Pam for a long time and now is her campaign manager. They just keep ruling people out, and it's like, what? I thought for sure it was this Brad. Brad was pretty good red herring. Did you think?
I thought Brad was a great red herring. I didn't think he had done it, but I thought that maybe he had hidden the body or something. I thought he had taken a much more active part in the murder than what was
Mhm.
later revealed. He
Mhm.
was a fantastic red herring because he was kind of suspicious, or rather pretty suspicious, but not overly villainous where it's just clear that this person didn't do it and we're just
Mhm.
supposed to believe they did it. I
Mhm.
thought that they did a good job
Yeah.
redirecting with him.
Yeah, I did too. Because obviously now that it's not Phoebe in the basement, we get the info that then it was Jay. It was this other guy. It was Jay Messner, this mayor's ex-husband, and so so now it's like, well, what in the world happened? Who killed him and stuff. So I'm pretty sure that the next crazy wild thing that happens here is this Gwendolyn Neely, this other lady on the block, has a party. She has a nice fancy black tie party and invites everybody who was at the party 7 years ago. Basically, kind of tricks them all into coming to this party and says, "While we're here, let's create a timeline. Let's figure it out."
I loved that. It felt like Clue. It's like while we're all dressed up, having some past hors d'oeuvres, like living it up. By the way, where were you 7 years ago? Someone's dead. You may have done it. The murderer's in this room. Okay, could you pass the shrimp cocktail? Like,
Right.
loved that energy. She was just like
We
a
need a little more Pinot
constant.
Gris over here.
Yeah, just a little more Pinot Gris, get the stories flowing, get the tongues loose here.
Yeah.
I just loved that energy. And I really was a fan of Gwendolyn throughout the film. She was just so fun. Even earlier in the movie when they initially question her about everything, which I think sets in motion her want to have this party of figuring out a
Yes.
murder. And they go because Aunt Cassandra knew her from the neighborhood that they used to live with together, that they used to live in together. And Aunt Cassandra does not want to be there. She's not
Mm-mm.
thrilled. She feels uncomfortable. And Gwendolyn was just obnoxious in a wonderful way. She was like, "Do you want to tour my very rich mansion? Do you want to talk about my Instagram? Do you want to look at the rich things I do? We can all like be rude to my housekeeper together. I'm rich. I'm so rich and happy." And so
In your face.
it
Yes.
was so obnoxious, and I love ridiculous characters like that.
Mhm. She was, and she played it so well. She played it. She
Mhm.
was that two-faced where she was so nice the whole time, but as soon as Billy and Aunt Cassandra got in the car, Aunt Cassandra's like, "She hates me." She
Yeah.
hates me. I know it. I can tell.
And I love Aunt Cassandra when Gwendolyn friended her on whatever the social media app
Yeah.
was called that they use, PixArt or something.
Yeah.
They said, she goes, "Oh, she wants to be my online friend." And I was like, "Oh, this is my mom describing social media." Like, she wants to be my online friend.
My online friend. So formal and proper.
Yeah.
Yes. So that ended up being kind of a small detail that made a big impact. These pictures, someone was taking pictures at this party 7 years ago, and sure enough, you find evidence in these pictures throughout the rest of the story. So they have flashbacks, they have pictures that everyone's looking at and consulting, and that is one thing that Gwendolyn shows at her party. She shows a picture that someone took, Brad,
Mhm.
of Phoebe murdering Jay, of sticking that screwdriver in his neck and murdering Jay. And it's a hooded figure and stuff, and her hands are out over Jay, and she's like, this is proof. And so at that time, Detective Price, because he's there in a handsome tuxedo as well, takes the photo as evidence, takes Phoebe into his care, and says, okay, this is all hearsay, nothing proves this. And but the photo, that was a pretty big deal, actually, the one she revealed, because it ended up being the evidence that proved that Phoebe did not do it. Actually, Phoebe did not kill Jay.
Yeah, it was a risk that did not pay off to show that picture, because we can talk about, I don't know if you're comfortable revealing the murderer
Yeah,
yet,
let's do it. Yeah, let's
but
reveal.
in revealing that picture, I think Gwendolyn was sitting on that in hopes that she could show it and go, this is Phoebe. And then everyone will go, oh my goodness, it's Phoebe, and just call it a day. And instead, she handed a police officer a photo of herself murdering someone, because it turns out it was Gwendolyn. We learned that the screwdriver that was used in the murder actually belonged to Aunt Cassandra, who has a memory recall that I'll never know in my life. I couldn't tell you what I ate today, what I did. And she looked at that picture for 2 seconds, really a millisecond, I would say, and went, oh, that's mine. That's my screwdriver. And so you can see this like tiny little label. So it turned out that Mike had borrowed the screwdriver from her 7 years ago, and
Yeah,
that Gwendolyn went, oh, this is perfect for murder, and took it and stabbed Jay with it.
and stab Jay with it. Stab Jay with it. Why she killed Jay? Gwendolyn killed Jay. What was her motive here? I thought at first it was going to be a romantic motive, but there was no romance there. She loves her husband, Mike, but they were having money problems, big time money problems, filed for bankruptcy. No one knew. And she saw the opportunity to kill Jay and take this $500,000 in cash that he had embezzled from his wife's car dealership to run away with Phoebe. And so while Phoebe was upstairs packing her bag to run away with Jay, Gwendolyn takes the opportunity to kill him, steal this money. And this is the rich lady, they invested in the town, and then got returns on that and everything. So that was her motive. It was all money, and it was all that was it. Remind me, how did the body get to the basement? Gwendolyn?
I assume Mike moved it. I assume he was part of it, because later we see at one of Pam's campaign events, she goes to bomb a building. There has to be a better term for that, because it's not
It's not bomb. It's
Pam
a
is not
purposeful
a
raise.
terrorist.
They're going to raise the building,
Yes,
right? On purpose.
they're exploding the building because they're building something there. It is legal.
Yes.
Pam Mesner was not a terrorist in this. She was just a candidate for mayor talking about new development in her town. And so I'm sorry, y'all. I don't know how to fish. I don't know how to do construction. I'm just here trying to hang. And so when she goes to detonate it, the cops pull up in time to stop her, because unwittingly she would have facilitated someone else's death, in that Mike had Phoebe tied up in that building that was set to detonate,
Right.
or that was set to explode. And so with that, I think that means Mike was in on it and likely helped move Jay's body.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. They were a very close couple, and they were very complex, these two, because they were doing horrible things, and yet they were turning around and they were doing good things. Like,
yes,
like revamping the city and pouring more money back into the city and getting things, getting Pam, a candidate for mayor, and all this stuff. So they were just complex in their villainous ways, but bad.
Yeah,
they were bad. Yeah,
maybe the movie is a lesson that we're all $500,000 away from revitalizing our own towns, because that's all it took for them to have great investments. Unfortunately, that money was just awful from the start, and so nothing that comes from it can be good because it
No.
came from murder, but they turned that 500,000 into the whole city. I feel like they could almost do a part 2 of the movie of just the town having to extricate itself from the investments from this couple because it sounded like they were almost
Yeah.
sustaining it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. They definitely need to do a Hallmark drama on that.
Yeah, exactly. Just
The
a
poor
financial
town,
drama for everyone who just loves civil planning or whatever.
right? Which Hallmark does.
Yeah, yeah, for
They do.
sure. Oh, they do actually.
Oh, they do.
They love a
So
town planner.
so we do have, we have the pieces that come together. We have the, Detective Price finding the lie on, the construction site when he goes to visit Mike Neely. We have, um, Cassandra and Billy and Maggie piecing it together with the screwdriver that it was Aunt Cassandra's from 7 years ago, and Billy, she goes rogue, and she goes and confronts Gwendolyn and brings her muffins and stuff like that, and needs to be saved last minute by Detective Price, who saves the day, and he comes in and arrests Gwendolyn before she can murder Billy. So
That was
that
sort of
is
a silly scene when
yeah,
Gwendolyn just kept chopping that muff. I have never seen someone dice a muffin really, and I think it was just for us to see her with the knife. But then I don't know that if someone is holding a knife, and I guess all of the ladies in Hallmark movies are very good at this. I don't know that I would confront someone with the fact that they murdered someone else
no,
while they are holding a weapon. And so she's just like has this giant knife and she is into smaller and smaller pieces. This muffin is about to be keto friendly. And Billy and Billy at the end, like despite all that knife wielding, was like, you killed them.
you killed them. You killed
Yeah.
them. And so, of course, she draws her knife on her. I mean, what is she gonna do? Like,
You're backed into a
Billy,
corner at this point. You can't even get any muffin, like you can't even
no,
have a snack.
gotta
This
leave
is
your
two
muffins.
two reveals in both of these movies where people don't get to have delicious treats and instead have to
That's
talk about murder. If there's another reason to not kill other people, it's there are better things to do with your time. Have a muffin instead.
such a great point, Mitu. You are so wise.
I should just do all crime prevention. Just
You
everyone
should
just
do
have some creme brulee. Calm down. It's okay.
perfect. Just eat it. You need a little sugar rush here. Don't worry. Oh, that's so great. So yes, that was the end. That is the reveal, the end of our morning show mystery. They celebrate at Aunt Cassandra's house, I believe,
Mhm.
and invite Maggie back and the dad, and I think Phoebe even, and Detective Price is there, and they do a little cheers to a toast to new friends or something like that. So great movie. I thought it was a great movie. I thought it was a great mystery. I gave it a 4 out of 5.
I agree. I might even go 4.5 because I was so impressed by the revamp.
Great. I love that. Yes, the revamp was worth it. It was really timely and I think brought a new era to the morning show mysteries, and they could keep going. That is the May recap. We have Martha's Vineyard Mysteries and Morning Show Mysteries, 2 great movies that you'll definitely want to watch or rewatch. Me too. Thank you for joining me on the Hallmarkies podcast. So fun.
Thank you for having me. This was a delight. And is this where I plug my podcast with?
I was just going to ask you, can you please do that? Tell us where to find you on social media.
Fab. I'm sorry for not waiting for that. It is after 9:30 p.m. on the East Coast, so I am officially a pumpkin at this point. But I co-host a podcast with one of my best friends, BJ, called the Pilot Podcast, where we review the pilot episodes of TV shows. So these are new shows or shows requested by our listeners to answer your question, should I watch this? Because there's so much out there, and we do very quick synopses and very quick reviews to just clue you in on what things that you may like or things that you may want to avoid. And so you can find our show at thepilotpodcast.com. And we're also on Instagram and Twitter at thepilotpod.
Mhm. I love that. I'm definitely going to look that up and find a few shows and listen to a few of your podcasts to see, should I watch this? Should I watch this? So great concept. Thank you so much for telling us about it. Everyone go find Mitu on social media. And you, of course, can find me on Instagram at Hallmark Comics. I would love to interact with you there. Just a really silly thing you can follow. And hey, if you're listening to us here on YouTube, don't forget to give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Or on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really appreciate that. And make sure to follow Hallmarkies podcast all over social media. We also have our Patreon group, and would love for you to join that. We have a lot of fun over there on our Patreon with our patrons. We have a merch store that you can check out. We appreciate all the support. And of course, thank you for listening tonight. And we will see you again. Bye, guys.